What if I pick the wrong marketing strategy? What if I put all this time, energy, and money into something and it doesn't work? Well, spoiler alert, I did. And I want to tell you the full story, how it happened, what I learned, and why it might not have been wrong at all. Welcome to the Establish Yourself podcast, your guide to elevating your brand, offers, and systems as a coach, consultant, or service provider. I'm Annie Franceschi of Greatest Story Creative. I'm a brand strategist, author, former Disney storyteller, and forever Muppet fan. If you're ready for next level success, we'll get clear on your brand, package your process, and streamline your systems so you can land quality clients, boost profit, and make time for big dreams in your business and beyond. If you're ready for less confusion and more magic, it's time to establish yourself. So let me take you back. I spent 4 years creating a YouTube interview series called Branding with Friends. 40 episodes, hours upon hours, easily 80 hours of my time and my team's time, if not more. It made so much sense when I first came up with the strategy. I was about to go on maternity leave with my son, Leo, and I knew I needed a way to stay visible. So I thought, perfect. I'll create a show where I'm the branding expert, and then I'll bring in other experts, folks who talk about LinkedIn, SEO, writing a book, you name it. And the idea was that if you were interested in growing your LinkedIn or you were interested in growing your social media, that you actually need to get clear on your brand first for those strategies to work. So I had a really sound idea behind all of it. It sounded really good on paper. I created a system for running the show, which I call a consistency container. This is a set of templates, strategies, and steps that let me batch episodes, hand them off to my assistant, and then keep showing up even when I was out on a 4-month maternity leave. It was smart. It was efficient. It was designed by a brand and marketing strategist, aka me. It got me moving. And for a while, it really served a need. Everyone preaches consistency, and I knew I needed to grow my audience and my email list so I could keep getting clients. So my theory was if I brought on folks that spoke about topics that related to branding, they would share the show, get it in front of their audience, and they would discover me as the branding expert. And that would grow my influence, grow my list, and of course, grow my client roster. But over time, it took me close to 4 years to really see that this probably wasn't the right strategy for me. It wasn't designed to fully meet my goals. Because the thing was, I didn't actually see the audience growth I was expecting from it. Clients didn't start pouring in the way that they were at the same time from all the speaking I was doing. And if anything, I heard that a lot of my audience, they hired the experts that I feature. So people were getting clients. It just wasn't me people. Don't get me wrong. I did get some clients too over the years. I know anecdotally that it helped kind of nurture the process and help people reach out or say yes at the last minute. And one of my guests on Branding with Friends actually became a great client. I made wonderful connections. I made friends. And I learned how to be a really great interviewer. Still, I started to take stock of things and I dug deeper. This was about last year as I was coming up on the 40th episode. And I started to think more about the idea of podcasting. But I was nervous to go from doing a YouTube show to doing a weekly podcast. I was worried it was going to take too much of my time to even be worth it. And I was worried that I wouldn't get the goals that I was trying to meet. Branding with Friends hadn't turned out the way I thought. So before I started the show, I spent several months in 2024 just researching. I listened to podcasts about podcasting, specifically shows that were all about how to have a podcast that drives your marketing, that gets you clients, that drives your audience. And it was pretty early on that I heard this gem that made my stomach sink. It was, if you want your podcast to focus as a marketing tool for your business, don't do interviews. What? Why? Well, as many shows I ended up listening to say, Because when you do interviews or only interviews, you are positioning your guest as the expert, not you. You become the host and not the trusted guide. I went, oh no. Has this been something I've been doing, inadvertently for 4 years? That's exactly what I had been doing with Branding with Friends. Even though it was not a podcast, it's a YouTube show, it's the same pattern. And here's what really brought it home. I was having lunch late last year with one of my top referring clients, one of my favorite people I've ever worked with. And I shared this kind of insight or this theory I had. Yeah, I'm thinking maybe I shouldn't have done this interview show, Branding with Friends. And she said, I'm glad you said that. When you came out with that show, I just wanted to learn from you. I didn't want to learn from the other people. So I didn't listen to it. Oh, that landed. The show I'm doing right now, as you're listening, by design, this show is solo episodes right now. I haven't ruled out the possibility of doing interviews or even having clients come on as interviews, but I want to show up as the expert. I want all the time I pour into this show to matter and to really align with the work I'm doing and, quite honestly, help me stay accountable to my goals. I touched on this earlier, but I teach this strategy, the idea of creating a consistency container. Writing with Friends is a really good example of that. This show is a good example of that. It's something where I've set up a system for myself to be consistent in my marketing. I show up every week with this show. I share it with my list. I talk about it or the theme of it on LinkedIn. And I do that every single week where I was doing, kind of sharing on LinkedIn sporadically. I was sharing my thoughts sporadically last year. So having a system has been a real game changer. And that's why when I doubled down and started doing this show and sunsetted Branding with Friends for now, it is a solo episode show, right? So it's going to solve that problem. But I don't want you to think that just because I spent 4 years doing maybe the wrong or not perfect strategy, that it wasn't a good use of my time. This show is better because I spent 4 years doing something that was not the perfect fit. I realized I hadn't been wrong. I've just been experimenting. What helped me stop spiraling about all that wasted time, 40 episodes, I started to see myself less as an artist and more like a scientist. A scientist does not expect that every hypothesis they have will be proven right. Instead, their day to day work and the work of their whole careers is running experiments. They gather data, they learn, they iterate, they run better experiments every single time because they learn from what they're doing. I wish I'd paid more attention to the results in real time, analyzing like what the effects of having each episode were on my business because I think I would have made decisions faster. I would not have waited 4 years to do a change in strategy had I been collecting more data. So it took me 4 years to kind of see it more organically. But if you can track that information more directly, so that's one of the biggest things I see is people give up too soon. They don't have the data to make a new choice. So, I waited 4 years. That was probably a little too long. Maybe I should have done that after a year or 6 months, even. But you want to do it things for at least 3 to 6 months so you know whether it's worth your time. If you are doing a lot of marketing, like I was doing Branding with Friends, you want to be tracking information. Like, are clients coming from that? Are people signing up for your newsletter or your lead magnet because you are talking about them on your show or in your newsletter? You want to pay attention to that and be able to track that information. I know that can be tricky. It doesn't need to be overly quantitative. That's how I was able to make some of these decisions to move from Branding with Friends to doing the Establish Yourself podcast. So, a change I've made here is in the podcast, I have a whole Airtable built out to organize the show and to track things and to look at, what clients have come from the podcast directly. So, that's where I can already see the momentum that this show is different than the other show. So, I'm about 20 something episodes into this show, and I can already see the number of clients I've been able to get from it. So, I can see that it's effective and it's working much faster than maybe the other show was. Branding with Friends has been a 4 year experiment. It taught me so much. It helped me create evergreen content. It built my network. It taught me critical systems. Did it check every single box that I had for it? No, but it kept me moving forward. And I think that's the point. It reminds me of one of my favorite quotes by James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits. He says, "The secret to winning is learning how to lose. That is, learning to bounce back from failure and disappointment, undeterred, and continuing to steadily march toward your potential. Your response to failure determines your capacity for success." That's the energy I want to bring into my business, into my mindset, and into how I coach and guide others. I want to normalize something here. Mixed results, they're normal. We assume that if somebody like me has a book and a podcast and a competent brand, that they're out there always getting it right, that they don't doubt themselves. But it's just not true. Just last week, I was crying to my husband. I was so overwhelmed. I felt like everything was falling apart. And thankfully, just late last week, I sat down and said, stop, Annie. What is the evidence of what's really going on? And I got out my journal and I wrote a list and I said, what is working? What is feeling good? What do I still feel good about in my business? And when I actually took stock of all the things that were working, instead of fixating on all the things that felt like they were cursing me and a slow drive into madness, I'm sure you can relate. I realized that all that slow drive into madness stuff was like 5% of what's going on in my business right now. I'm like, why, when it's 95% is great, am I fixating on that gap? Right? I'm fixating on it because I'm a fixator, right? But the percentage is always going to change. Check in with me next week. Next week when it's 10% or 20% or whatever it's going to be. We all go through seasons with our business and how we're feeling about it. But taking stock and taking action, it doesn't mean that your business isn't working. It just means that you're evolving and you're learning, and not everything you're going to do is either an all out success or an all out failure. Just doesn't work that way. Coming into your work as a scientist and less an artist, I think is the freeing mindset I have needed as a recovering perfectionist. So if you're in a moment in your business where you are ready to scale, you know that you have been growing and you don't know how to tell the story, you don't know what would be that right consistency container. Is it a workshop series? Is it a podcast? Is it a YouTube show? It could be. I don't know. If you need help with this, I can help you evaluate and put together your own consistency container in what I call a magic strategy day. That's where we help you get clear on those next steps, create your consistency container. And I do talk about these systems in my book, Establish Yourself: Brand, Streamline, and Grow Your Greatest Business. This is a book that, if you like the idea of growing your business with less pressure, an eye to simplicity, and you would be very curious to know how I take every December off, that's what I want to share with you. So I have the first 50 pages for free. If you want to read the first chapter for free, I will put the link here in the show notes for you. So you got nothing to lose if you want to throw that on your Kindle or on your phone and take it with you, because if you like this kind of advice, this is where I like to live, is the advice that I actually try to take this own medicine myself, live the part, and help you to know that you can have a thriving business that works for the big picture. I have been doing this for 11 years. Most businesses, at least half, fail in the first five. And it's a very small percentage that make it past a decade. And I'm right here in year 11, going into year 12, to tell you that there are best practices that allow you to grow without living on social media all the time. I've put them in the book, and I know you'll check that out if that feels useful. But here's what I want you to take away from today. Even if you pick something that turns out not to be the best fit as a marketing strategy, it's still going to move your business forward. The problem isn't picking wrong. The problems are not picking and not learning from when you do. You don't have to get an A plus in every strategy. You just have to show up. So start thinking like a scientist. What are you trying to accomplish? What's working? What's not? What can you do differently? Done is better than perfect. Movement is better than motion. I just wanted to peel back the curtain and share with you, if you look at somebody like me and you think I don't doubt myself or I get it right every single time, nothing could be farther from the truth. I think the secret of having been in business for more than a decade and helped hundreds of people is the scientist mindset. It's being willing to run the experiment. It takes a lot of courage. It takes persistence. It takes doing things for a consistent amount of time. So that's what I would say. I think whatever strategy you are applying right now in your marketing, make sure you do it for long enough to learn from it. For the podcast, for example, I have made a commitment to myself to do it for 52 episodes, do it for a whole year. And that's already proven to be a great choice because it is an emotional roller coaster to run these experiments. One week, if you run into me, I might say, I'm so happy I'm podcasting. Another week, you might find me and go, oh my gosh, this is so hard. Why did I agree to do this? I know I've got to have enough data to know if this is worth my time. And I can't make that decision just a couple episodes in. So I'm right there with you. I'm living the scientist mindset. And if you want some more help with that, encouragement, and some of the things I've lived through to tell the tale, be sure to check out that free chapter of Establish Yourself. And until then, let's run these experiments together. Hey, do you like surprises? Here comes the show's credits, but just like a Marvel movie, stay to the end so you don't miss something fun I put in just for you. Thanks for tuning in to the Establish Yourself podcast. I'm Annie Franceschi, and I want to hear from you. Follow me on LinkedIn. Share your favorite takeaway from today's episode as a comment on my latest post. Mention your favorite Muppet in your message so I know you're a fan of the show. And for expert branding help, a free consultation, and more resources, visit greateststorycreative.com/podcast. Now, here it is, your moment of magic. Have you ever played a game called Cards Against Humanity? It is one of the funniest and best games I've ever played, but you absolutely can't play it with children. But I'm super excited because my family invented a version of it that you can play with kids, and it's called Listen Up. You can play this with anybody, it doesn't have to be with children, but you can play it in the car, you can play it anywhere, but it is super fun if you need to kill some time. So about a year ago, my son Leo looked at us and he just said, "Listen up, hot juice." What? Hot juice? What does that even mean? You can't call someone hot juice. I don't know. But now we've turned that into a whole game. Can you explain how Listen Up works?
Okay, listen up is where you go like, listen up, taco brain.
But we don't say mean words and we don't use bad words, right?
Yeah, so we don't say like stupid or dumb.
Do you want to play around with me?
Oh yeah, listen up, rotten eyeball.
Listen up, slice of cake.
Listen up, gum.
Listen up, salad bar.
Listen up, booger.
Yay! If you give it a try, let me know. But that it has trademarked. Listen Up, the best new game on the block.